We were talking about receiving an inheritance the other day from someone while they were overseas. Would you care to share some more about that, or Craig and James, because you were talking about it before?
Sure, probably more from a tax point of view, also maybe practically. Assuming that we're talking about an Australian deceased estate distributing to non-resident beneficiaries, for the most part, as a recipient of an inheritance from an Australian estate received by an Australian beneficiary, any assets, for example, that you receive are basically a rollover. So, for example, if your parents had an investment property and they wanted to bequeath that to you as part of their inheritance, any inherent capital gain in that property would be rolled over to you and you would pay tax on that if and when you decided to sell it. However, if that property is passed over to a non-resident, even if you're a citizen, it doesn't really matter, but if you're a non-resident living abroad, that will actually trigger a capital gain to the estate. So that can be a real cost to the estate that maybe hadn't been anticipated, particularly if you are someone who's not lived overseas before, or maybe the will was drafted without that being anticipated, but that can be a real cost to the estate because the estate will be taxed on that capital gain, and it may well cause an imbalance in the estate, or other issues I've certainly seen. But I guess the challenge, and I guess James and I, we spoke about this offline, you don't always know who you're going to get an inheritance from, and it's not always practically possible to go around and sort of ask potential people to say, are you going to
show some money to me?
Yeah, and if so, by the way, I'm going overseas for 2 years, might want to get your will redrafted. So it's more of a practical issue around, well, how do you actually deal with those sorts of things? And certainly I've had clients of late who are quite wealthy here in Australia, 2 children that both live in the States, and so they've had to go and get in-country advice around how best to manage a future inheritance to go to their kids overseas, and how it might be done without eroding the capital and things like taxes and inheritance taxes and things like that.
Yeah, I think it's about making all steps possible to make sure you're in an informed position about what that might look like. And like you mentioned, Craig, you can't go out and ask every single person you know whether you'll receive an inheritance from them, but a good start might just be from your parents. If your parents are from a foreign jurisdiction and you've come to Australia, that's probably a good starting point, just on that one that we're dealing with at the moment, where there's a foreign trust involved, and what that might look like for them as tax residents of Australia. So that might impact more people than we think.